Game of the Year winner is Elden Ring!
Although only a cinematic trailer with no gameplay whatsoever, the trailer still pumped my hype up to 11. Having never played a mech game myself, not that I remember at least, I have found myself again on a really good spot. My favorite game developer is officially releasing a new installment for a long dormant IP of theirs, Armored Core. To me, it was simply the perfect opportunity to hit two birds with one stone. I get to play a mech game, and I get to play a mech game made by a developer with a legendary track record when it comes to quality of their products. I couldn't ask for a better opportunity, and now I, the Discount Russian, a mech newcomer, an AC noob, and a From Software simp, is here to convince you, my fellow noob, why you should play Armored Core 6. So load your weapons, build your mechs, and now,
let's get to work.
And now, first of all, I just want to get this question immediately out of the way. Is Armored Core 6 a game of the year? No, it's not. Sorry, not gonna happen.
Traitor!
Whoa, Jesus! Okay, let me explain before you raise your torches and pitchforks. Although I will admit that this is the game I had the most fun playing this year, I still don't believe Armored Core 6 will surpass the other contenders for the Game Awards, especially in the eyes of judges and critics of the Game Awards. I'm not saying Armored Core 6's artistic and technical qualities cannot compete with the other contenders for Game of the Year award, especially the ones in this year. In fact, the levels of quality from this game's developer alone is reason for me to recommend it, even to people that are not into mech games. Hell, I am not into mech games and I'm playing it, but keep in mind this game is still very niched, even more so than the Souls-like games. And due to the gargantuan success of Elden Ring, critics will simply not help themselves in comparing both From Software titles, something that unfortunately will definitely weigh in on their decisions in regards to Armored Core's contention. Armored Core 6 unfortunately will never have the appeal Elden Ring gathered. Coupled with the strong cast of contenders for the Game Awards, it's just hard for me to believe that AC will get the nod. I know I didn't put out many technical reasons as to why Armored Core 6 will not win Game of the Year award. I'm just trying to be very concise on some of the main reasons as to why it's probably not gonna win, as to why probably it's not gonna win. But hey, I would be glad to be wrong.
Main system, activating combat mode.
Now, let's jump straight to the point. Time to talk about the main selling point of this game, the gameplay. And it works great, surprisingly so. I say surprisingly though due to the fact that, well, this is my first mech game ever. And even though I'm well accustomed to the innate challenge From Software's game provides, I still went into this game knowing very well that this would be a very different thing than what I was accustomed to. So yeah, you know, I had some worries. Worries akin to, will this gameplay even click for me? Is it a good idea to enter a niche genre I know nothing about? Am I perhaps overhyping myself into playing this game way too much? And not gonna lie, the first hour was a bit rough.
I need help!
Yet, I figured this roughness was likely coming from my inexperience with the genre, or in this IP in particular. So I persisted and eventually, well, it clicked. Holy shit! Did it click hard. Even though I had some innate difficulties early on, it was still incredible how well this game responded to the controls. The fluidity of it, everything felt fluid. But after I got the true grasp of how to truly play this game, the feeling of playing it went from
SPCA craft. I'm in danger!
to
Main system. Reactivating combat mode. No further down. Now's your chance, Raven. Taking your comms link offline for now. Yeah.
couple that with a sense of scale that both level design and boss design gives you, and you have a very rewarding gameplay experience. Also, that slow-mo camera after you beat a boss or another AC pilot is just a stroke of genius. Mwah. Chef's kiss. One word of advice that I would give to players that have never played a game like this before is to not attempt to brute force your way through the missions. Trust me, I tried. It's not worth it. Instead, try new builds, approach a mission in a different way. The variety is there, and you should use it. Believe that. Which brings me to my next topic. Okay, now this is something I legit did not expect to enjoy so much, which is the customization that this game provides. I mean, Jesus Christ, I had more fun customizing the mechs than I had playing them. This game's ability to make you go, ooh, I want to try that out, is nothing short of unbelievable. The moment you unlock a weapon or a part, you immediately start to wonder of how does this work? I want to try it. Literally, you get a weapon, you're like, I want to see what this does. I want to figure out how to use it. Your newfound sense of curiosity will eventually lead to you learning more and more of the mech building mechanics, which is ingenious in this game. It's really astonishing to look at it. It was so nice to actually get an item and be like, ooh, I really want to try it out. Something that games these days have very little capacity to do. And when it comes to the campaign, and I mean the personalization utilized for the campaign reasons, there has not been a single weapon that I felt like, yeah, this weapon is not very good, this weapon's bad. There are weapons that are better for different scenarios than others. The same goes for mech parts, but it's still, there was not a single one was like, okay, maybe this weapon is useless everywhere. No, there's not been a single weapon that is like, yeah, this is bad, that you shouldn't use it. There's no such thing in this game, which is a great accomplishment for the personalization, customization, and also the gameplay mechanic aspect of it that I probably should have put it in the gameplay part of this review, but whatever. And also, differently to the Souls games where you end up investing in a single attribute for your build's efficiency, in Armored Core you have no such limitations. There are no such thing as a quality build in Armored Core. I mean, if you want to build a strength-like character in the Souls games, tough luck. You have to focus on, strength. That's gonna be the main point of your character, the main forte of his. That's not the case of Armored Core. I mean, you want to try a heavy bipedal build? Just buy the parts and build it. You want to try a tetrapod build? Be my guest. Buy the parts and build it. Every part and weapon has its uses, like I said before, requiring only for you to know how to tweak and work around the mech building mechanic, which is not as intimidating as it looks. Don't go looking at these numbers and be scared of trying things out. And anyway, if you don't want to build, which I have no idea why you wouldn't, you can still download some builds from the internet. You still need the parts of the mechs in order to download said build, but you can still do it. If you feel like, no, I'm not very good at building mechs, I want to see what other guys build, and there's a whole community focused exclusively on that. And to my knowledge, Armored Core has always been about personalizing your mech and trying to find different ways to accomplish certain missions. So again, if you're not into building the mech, there's still a lot of people that will that will share it for you all to play it. Download it, play it, try it out. There's not going to be any shortage of that for you in case you're just, I don't know, lazy or really intimidated by the mech mechanics, or just don't feel like you're good enough for it. Therefore, to me, the customization in this game ended up being by far the most enjoyable part of it. I feel like there are some games that could learn from this sort of mechanic. I just can't quite put my finger on which games what games could probably, learn a thing or two about such a system, I wonder. Although I must be frank, the mech combat gameplay is still the selling point of this game. Of course, the customization has a direct influence over it, but it can be very confusing for normies or new players coming in, or people that are not as hardcore of a gamer as I was, or some of you may be, some of the Souls veterans may be. So if you never played a From Software game, still don't be intimidated, the combat will be there. It's not that Frankenstein of a monster to understand it. But still, the gameplay will be the main selling point for you if that's the case, and not the customization. Although I will still incentivize you to learn about the customization. Trust me, if you want to try this game out, you will be greatly rewarded for learning such mechanics. And talking about combat, did you really believe I would leave this review without mentioning the boss fights? From Software is the king of boss fights, and they surely have not disappointed here. The sheer scale and speed that these bosses bring to the table will truly test not only your mettle, but your reaction time as well. And remember what I said about this game's variety, because the bosses will surely force you to learn on how to use every tool available in order to beat them. Like any FromSoft game, these bosses won't go down without some effort. The sheer scale and speed they offer, coupled with the stellar combat this game provides, will give you a challenge to behold. Like Maverick against the Sukhois in the latest Top Gun movie, these bosses will give you a dogfight to behold. But instead of F-22s, yeah, I know that plane's not an F-22, okay, give me a break. You'll be piloting mechs instead, and it will be awesome. One last addendum that I feel like it's important for me to put it out there before I forget about the boss fights. In concern to the boss fights, that their difficulty, they're challenging, don't get me wrong, they're still From Software bosses. They are not as challenging in my opinion in comparison to their other titles, their Souls-like titles. But they're still From Software bosses, they still require that effort in order to beat them. But their difficulty could go from impossibly difficult with the current build that you possess, to extremely easy to a new build that you're trying it out. It's kind of fun in a way to see that the boss incentivize you to try new weapons, new builds, new mechs in order to beat them. But at the same time, it can be quite weird and somewhat hilarious to see like one build having extreme difficulty against them and another just having a walk in the park. Then suddenly the boss, it's difficult for you to measure the boss difficulty due to that, because one build may work wonders against that boss and on the next one it's completely horrible against it. That's something that will happen in this game. I liked it. I enjoyed the fact that some things will work in certain situations, some certain things will not, and the bosses are the perfect example of this in this game. And also, one last addendum, I'm referring to bosses, the unique enemies of it, not necessarily the AC pilots. You can also consider them bosses because they have unique encounters, but they play like other ACs, they play like a PvP match. Imagine you being invaded by an NPC, they feel like that. So that's one last thing that I feel like I need to get it out there about the boss fights.
Got a job for you, 621.
Now, for the story. Well, not gonna lie, the story is not this game's strongest suit. It's not bad, so relax, okay? The story is mostly told through dialogue, and when I say mostly, I mean the vast majority of it follows this format. It goes along like this. You receive a mission request, hear the briefing, do the missions while hearing some characters mostly walk or talk through comms with you or someone else, and after the mission is completed, you receive messages or hear characters discuss current or possibly future events, rinse and repeat. It's a far more linear style of storytelling than I'm accustomed to the other Souls-like games or From Software games, and you may ask, but well, Sekiro also has a far more traditional style of storytelling than the other Souls games, and you are correct, but Sekiro had a lot more interaction when it comes to Sekiro himself as a character to the other characters in this world. And here you are a silent character and you see other characters interact with themselves. You feel like more of a spectator than anything else. Also, one thing that I have to note that is in the arena you can also find a background for the mechs, their pilots, which are mostly also found throughout the campaign. I mean, you may fight them in the campaign, you may encounter them, but if you want to see their lore, their backgrounds, you will have to unlock them for the arena, you have to face them, and then there will be a text that will give you information about them. Most of the lore of this world is also like that. There are some logs that you can find throughout the map throughout the world and its missions, and learn a little thing or two about Rubicon, its world, and its historical happenings and whatnot. In short, it feels like listening to a good audiobook while piloting a 10-meter tall mech. An audiobook that sounds a lot like Doom, but instead of noble houses fighting for a nearly magical substance that can work miracles, you get a bunch of corporations fighting for a nearly magical substance that can work miracles. Yeah, Coral and Spice Melange are nearly the same thing, let's be honest here, except Coral does not give you psychic abilities. Well, it can do some other stuff, but I'm not gonna enter spoiler territory here. And also, could this reference be any more on the nose? But don't get me wrong, I found the factions of AC6 quite interesting to learn about, especially the Institute and their infamous sea weapons. Also, the Red Guns and their overly enthusiastic commander, Michigan, were quite fun for me to listen to.
Balaam Group AC Squad Red Guns reporting for duty. Commence mission. Attack! Get in there, you maggots!
The locals' little base is next.
Good five. Can't tear yourself away from chatting with a tag-along? Why don't you start a sewing club together and stitch that damn mouth of yours shut?
Is he fucking awesome?
I found a lot of enjoyment in listening to their story, but I can also see how many players would simply ignore it simply due to the fact that it lacks the cutscenes. And now to conclude my opinions on the story, when it comes to the narrative, I have never played other AC games before to compare it, and I know nothing about their lore subsequently. I can't even tell if there are any reference from other games here, other AC games I mean. But what I can tell is that Fires of Rubicon may be very interested in learning more of this world's factions and its lore. Perhaps it'll do the same to you too, but I wouldn't count on that as the main reason this game ends up pulling you in. Multiplayer. Probably I should put in the gameplay segment, but still it's something that I want to focus a little bit more, not that much, but still something I want to talk about more specifically, because, this is gonna be a tough topic. Because here's the thing. Initially I was not too keen on trying out multiplayer in AC6. I was actually worried about how balanced this game would end up being. I mean, From Software had some troubles dealing with balancing before. Also, the thought of a bullet hell of a game having FromSoft's legendary latency issues, oh yeah, that gave me chills, so I'm not gonna lie. But what were the answers I got when it came to those worries? After playing the multiplayer, I mean. Well, I was right. And also not. Currently I'm having a freaking blast with the multiplayer. I mean, yes, the sweaty tryhards are still here, so if you see two of these in a mech, then yeah, you already know what's coming. But the amount of OP and obnoxious build were not nearly as prevalent as I suppose it would be. I mean, don't get me wrong though, I'm not complaining about the competition. I love the competitiveness in From Software games. But at the same time, I enjoy fucking around with different weapons and builds, and with the freedom of variety this game provides, it would simply be a waste to watch that same variety be snuffed out because of one OP build or weapon. Remember, the OP build / weapon isn't annoying because it's OP per se. It's annoying because you see it fucking everywhere. Even if you eventually learn how to deal with it, you will still be annoyed to see it 5 times in a row. I mean, remember how fun it was to invade people or be invaded by people down the ring in the launching weeks or months? Oh, how fun, I got to invade someone. I wonder what weapon is he using? It's Rivers of Blood. Or Moonveil Katana, oh yeah, there's also that little trinket. But thank God that does not seem to be the case here, at least not yet. In fact, it's quite entertaining to see how surprisingly powerful some wacky builds can turn out to be. But what of the latency? Well, it's here. But in my experience, it's a lot better than Elden Ring or the other Souls games, but it's still here. So I would recommend you tweaking your area of, online play. Yeah, you should probably tweak those out for a better connectivity experience. But I gotta say, it's still kind of hilarious and frustrating at times when a laser or missile flies right past you, does not explode, but it still damages you. What? Alright. Still, that will not take away from how entertaining it is to compete against other players. If that's still not your cup of tea, there's always the arena where you fight the AI, and they can be quite challenging. Like I said, the multiplayer is still a blast. Although the Zimmerman, the Zap pistol, and this rocket pistol, they should probably be nerfed. And they probably will be nerfed. I will be quick on this topic because unfortunately I feel like there is not much to say here. As expected from a From Software soundtrack, it's really good. It has that level of quality expected of them. But this soundtrack, in my opinion, is far from their best. I mean, outside of Rusted Pride and Contact with You, very few other tracks actually stood out to me along my experience with the game. With that said, the more electronic vibe of the songs fit really well with the ambience and thematic aspects of the game. It's not as bombastic as the Soul titles, and it's probably not supposed to, but still it has its flair. Kind of an anticlimactic way to judge the soundtrack, but to me this one simply didn't stick in comparison to their other titles that I have played. Although that's probably just a matter of taste though. The soundtrack is still really good, but it's not the type of thing that I would hear afterwards. I mean, it's kind of impossible to not compare it, but there was always a very significant amount of songs from Sekiro, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, and Dark Souls that I would listen to and be like, holy shit, I want to listen to this over and over again. That's not the case with this soundtrack in this regard. And again, like I said, it's probably just a preference thing because I still feel like it's really good. But in short, I feel like it's a soundtrack that's really good for the thematic of this game. You will listen to this game and be like, oh, this is nice listening to this while playing this. I wouldn't listen to it outside of it. That's what I'm trying to say. Still, pretty good. I liked it. Now, to finally conclude this lengthy review. Something that most, if not all, From Software veterans will 100% agree with me is that sometimes recommending a From Software game can be quite difficult, especially if you intend to recommend to players that have never played any of their games, any of their products. Not only did the company get an amazing reputation, it also gathered a reputation of being quite unforgiving when it comes to their mechanics. So, finding the right game to recommend to someone, to a From Software noob, will always be a challenge. People will simply feel too intimidated, they will feel like they are going to be wasting their time and that investing too much time in those games is simply not worth the hassle. But well, here's the thing. From Software taught us the persistence and the reward that it comes after, being persistent and eventually triumphing over a difficult task or challenge. So, in this challenge, in recommending a From Software game, I will be persistent. Armored Core 6 is for me perhaps the best introduction point to a From Software game. It will not prepare you to the Souls games, but if you want to finally feel the experience that an amazing developer like From Software and the quality and passion that they put in their projects, how it truly feels to play a feature-complete game that has everything you ask for and more, and possibly even end up making you a fan of their, company, their games, then Armored Core 6 will be the best game for you. It will not prepare you for the Souls-like games, it will not prepare you for the difficulty, and trust me, Armored Core 6 is still not a casual game, it's still quite a challenging game, but it's far from being that brutally punishing in comparison to the Souls title. So if there is a title that is from Software that I would recommend for the new players, it would be Armored Core 6. It simply has everything you wish for in the game, and also it has no microtransactions, no greedy schemes, everything's in here from day one, as expected from Software. So, once again, buy this game, play it, you will have a blast with it. This has been the Discount Russian. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider a like and a subscribe, and I will see you next time. Peace!